Steeler Nation, we are back for another great episode on the one and only The Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Jay York Football, as always, alongside of me, Mic'd Up Sports One. And man, it is a big week in the AFC North, and our guest that we're going to be bringing on shortly is going to tell us what she's seeing over at the Ravens side of things. But before we get into it, Michael, first off, what's the temperature in South Florida right now?
I don't want to make everybody jealous, man. It's like 78 and sunny.
Oh.
I have, though, been getting ready for the holidays, and it doesn't feel the same. I will admit that. This is when I really miss the Berg and 30 years I spent there, because when you have a little chill in the air, you get some of that chili in your system on football Sunday or Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
It really just warms the soul. And so it's too damn hot here right now, but once January hits, I'm like, thank goodness I'm not in the Berg.
Oh, yeah, thanks for rubbing that in, because the crock pot's definitely going to be going this Saturday when the Steelers take on the Ravens. And before we bring on our great guest, we partnered up with DraftKings. I've been on a roll lately, I'm not going to lie, and I'm taking these single bets instead of taking the parlays, so I've been able to make myself some nice extra Christmas cash. So why don't you tell our viewers how they could do it for themselves?
We still want people taking the parlays, man. I've seen some incredible DraftKings parlays that were hit lately that I'm sure
they always get me personally.
They get you, of course. Well, they should, because they're fantastic. And the NFL season is rolling along, and the contenders, as you mentioned, are separating from the pack. We're talking about two contenders today. The one thing that hasn't changed is DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. It's the number one place to bet touchdown, guys. We don't care how they get them. We want to bet on touchdowns. DraftKings is the best place to do it. Here's a new reason, of course, for customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Let's see a touchdown dance, Jordan. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. But most importantly, use our code SICKSPORTS. That's SICKSPORTS. New customers get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you bet $5, only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
That's got to be one of the coolest terrible towels I've ever seen. I can't lie. Is that new?
Yeah, Matt Cushing and Najee Harris. What do you think?
I didn't expect Matt Cushing to be on it. I'll put it that way. But it is absolutely cool. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty cool as well. You mentioned it, JY. I think it's the best rivalry in football for my money. And
I respect the Ravens. I do. Yeah. I don't like the Browns, but I respect the Ravens. You have to. It's what
yeah, the Ravens don't respect you because your connection sucks right now. But anyway, if you want to jump off and jump back on, I'm going to bring in our awesome Ravens expert today. She's a reporter for the Baltimore Banner, a Penn State grad. Might have talked about that as well. You can find her on X at Giana_Jade. It is Giana Han. Hi, Giana. How are you?
Doing well. Just got out of practice in the locker room, so got some fresh information for you.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about it. First of all, how excited are you about Penn State being in the playoffs? Are you nervous? Are you going to be watching on Saturday?
It's going to be hard, obviously, because of the game.
Right.
I don't think I'm too nervous. I can't say I've watched SMU, so I don't know, but it was definitely interesting that, it was so disappointing that they lost to Oregon, and then it kind of turned out easier path to the playoffs, which was hard to grasp because I'm dating myself, but that wasn't a thing, the last time I was in college was the last time they won the Big Ten championship. And then they got snubbed from playoffs anyway. So it's just a whole new world,
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously a lot of Steelers fans are Penn State fans as well. So excited to talk a little bit about that. A team you do watch day in and day out, of course, the Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk Lamar Jackson a little bit. It's no secret at this point he struggled against the Steelers. Ravens have lost 7 of the last 8, I think, to Pittsburgh as well. Maybe 8 of the last 9 at this point. In your expert opinion, what have the Steelers done well to maybe not stop but hinder Lamar Jackson?
It's so interesting because I think a lot of it goes down just like Lamar. I think he does a lot of things different against the Steelers that, like, the Steelers are really good, don't get me wrong, and their defense is good and they pressure him. But the thing is, through the rest of the season, he's done well when pressured. He's one of the best quarterbacks when pressured. And it's just against the Steelers and maybe the Chiefs, but they don't play them as often, that he just does this thing we talk about among the Ravens media. We've said that he just has this glitch, right? Like, he'll be playing absolutely amazing, looking like an MVP, and there'll just be like one little thing that you're like, what is going on? Except for the Steelers, the whole game is a glitch. Like, you very rarely see him looking like he does. And it's so interesting because he's not usually a guy that like lets the moment get to him. He can usually rise to the occasion. I mean, even in some of these like Kansas City games, you still see those flashes of excellence. And it's just like the Steelers, for some reason, they just like maybe live in his head for some reason. And they do, I mean, obviously they have a good run defense and the run is huge for them. And they have a good defense, let's just be real. And they're able to get pressure on him and he's taking some hard hits. It's just, it always baffles me how he's not able to get around that when he can for basically any other team.
Yeah, no question. And, you know, personally, I think that could change this week, considering, you know, all the noise, of course, the chatter that has been around this rivalry and the fact that the Ravens really need a win. You mentioned you just kind of came, of course, from the locker room. What is the vibe around this team right now? You know, obviously they want to win every game, but assuming this one just feels different.
Yeah, I mean, I think they took the Giants win for what it is. Like, let's get back from the bye, and it's not a great team, but, you know, we did what we need to do. And then I actually took off the first day, but yesterday the locker room was pretty loose. And then even today, they just had like literally like island vibes going. They had some like reggae going when we walked in or whatever it was. And guys are kind of joking around, but I was in the locker room while my coworkers were at Harbaugh's press conference, and they said the press conferences have been a little tense. And I know like a lot of the guys have talked about, there have been kind of differing messages, like we need to just get this win, or like, oh, it's just another game. It's always interesting because you are told to like say it's just another game, right? Like since you were in Pee Wee, that's how you talk, unless it's the Super Bowl. But at the same time, you can't deny that Steelers games are different. So it's interesting to hear which guys will admit it or not. I know like Marlon Humphrey was saying like he didn't realize that the Steelers have won 8 of the last 9. So he was a little shocked. He said it didn't quite feel like that, but he was like, we really have to get back into it. You know, we got to like get this win. It's imperative. And then other guys are like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, it's just not, you know, it's just another game. We win it because we got to win it. So the messaging has been a little bit different, but I do think there just seems to be frustration in the room as a whole because they aren't living up to their standards. Like if you look at the record, you're like, oh, they're doing pretty well. But if you watch them day in and day out, you know who these guys are. You know they aren't playing up to what their potential is. I mean, the secondary is the perfect example of that. They've got Pro Bowlers galore, and they were last in the league until the last few weeks. So it's just been like a really strange season, and I think the locker room's kind of reflecting that. It's been a little tenser than it was last year. And so this game is important in terms of the rivalry, but it's also just so important in terms of playoffs and just vibes, I think.
Island vibes. Little Bob Marley maybe rocking it there. I didn't anticipate that. It's probably not going to feel like that whatsoever in Baltimore on Saturday.
Oh, no.
The weather. But, you know, it's Steelers Ravens in December, so what else would you expect? I want to briefly take you back to the first matchup this season before I kick it back over to Jordan. What do you think, you know, maybe outside of Lamar Jackson, you know, what went wrong for Baltimore? It was obviously a really close game, but I think a lot of Ravens fans, people close to the team like yourself, probably thought they should have won that game.
I mean, the number one thing I hate to say it, Justin Tucker, he would have made those field goals, completely different game. And I think one of the biggest frustrations with that game is the defense actually played well. And I know like the Steelers team is all about their defense, but their offense had been humming. So to play well against them, that was a huge win. Not allow them in the end zone, like that's so good. And so there's this kind of weird atmosphere afterwards because the defense, like everyone was upset, obviously, but the defense was kind of having these like mixed feelings of like, wait, we actually finally played well. but it's a loss. And again, like Lamar didn't play up to the standards, and like a lot of his guys also kind of don't come through for him in these games. If you remember last year in Pittsburgh, and he actually played okay, and like just all his receivers were dropping passes. Like I think there were like 5 or 6 drop passes. And this time it wasn't as bad, but like there were some drop passes. They also forced the ball to Diontae Johnson, which was like questionable decision on their part. And that wasted a few downs early on to get things moving. But it really just came down to Justin Tucker. And, you know, we didn't see him kick any field goals last week. So I can't really tell you if he improved anything over the bye, if he fixed anything. All we saw him do was extra points. He didn't even do kickoffs because they had Penn Stater Jordan Stout kicking off. And so it came down to like those 2 missed field goals, and we don't know where he's going to be now as we play another game that might come down to field goals.
Yeah. That's why we're so glad that we have Chris Boswell over here in Pittsburgh, because he's been money for most of his career, but I mean, even Bos, we said it on past podcasts, he goes through rough patches and you just got to find your rhythm again. With that being said, do you think that the winner of this game ultimately wins the AFC North?
Yes, I think so. I believe mathematically, if the Steelers win this, they automatically win the AFC North. So I guess then the question would be if the Ravens do win it, if they could catch up. And the fact that the Steelers are playing the Chiefs, I think that would give them a pretty good chance. I think the Ravens can beat the Texans, and I also think they could. Well, I would hope they can beat the Browns. They didn't beat the Browns, but you guys have that feeling as well.
That's what's scary about it. And I know the game that we played, the Browns, it was snowy, but both teams played in those elements. But it's like the Browns, like, to knock off like that. This is their Super Bowl, like these AFC North games. Like they might hang a banner in Cleveland when they beat, you know, either one of our teams. That's just, you know, where their franchise is at as a whole. So those games are, I hate using the term trap game, but like that's kind of like what those games are. In a way. But yeah, and you kind of alluded to it earlier as well. Diontae Johnson, just talk about that situation. Like what the heck is going on over in Baltimore? I mean, we kind of like, you know, we're happy to get rid of him in Pittsburgh, Carolina, short stint. And now I just, do you have any sort of storyline or any like what's going on?
I mean, so John Harbaugh like press conference on Monday was telling us that we're just looking for a good storyline, and I was like, we're not looking for one. This already exists. Like people want to know what's going on. This isn't us
it's
like
just
trying
a question.
It's like just people want to know. You traded for him. Yeah, you didn't give up that much, but he's a big name and he came from a rival team. Like obviously people want to know. So essentially, like beginning of this, he first gets here. He didn't like do too hot, but he also hadn't practiced with the team, pretty expected, doesn't know the playbook, yada yada. And then it keeps going. He's like not doing much. And obviously there's a Mike Tomlin quote, like he's not a big part of what they're doing, which was true, but you could still kind of be like, oh, he's finding his way. But the few times they did go to him, he made like only 1 catch, and he also like tripped on a few of them and just like wiped out. So he didn't perform. And then obviously we get to the Eagles game, and apparently like in game, he was like, nope, not going out there. Which when that happened to the 49ers, all the other players were like, I never want to play with a guy who does that again. Like they were so mad. And then afterwards in the locker room, he was just like chilling in there, talking to Lamar. They were like kind of using their hands. So I was trying to see if they were angry without eavesdropping too much. And like they weren't. And, like Derrick Henry wandered over there. So like teammates weren't like being mad at him. Not that many people were talking to him, but like no one was like being angry. And then, I mean, the Ravens are super well coached in terms of like what they say for the most part. So like every guy we've talked to is like, yeah, we'd welcome him back. So they suspend, obviously. Now he's like mutually agreed not to be here. They haven't taken down his locker yet, so maybe that's a sign. But it's just like,
That's just so baffling.
It's
like
weird.
To me, like this.
But now Nelson Aguilar is in concussion protocol, and Rashad Bateman was wearing a boot today. So it might be like not just as a storyline, but like you might only have Zay Flowers, and then the next one's down are Tylan Wallace and rookie Devontae Walker, who just made his first NFL catch last game against the Giants. So like that becomes a really big storyline if your 2 and 3 wide receivers are down, and the guy that you traded, who is used to being a number 1 wide receiver, isn't here. He's not participating in team activities. So people have like wondered if maybe it's to keep him from being picked up by like the Chiefs, or not that the Steelers would take him back, but people say like if the Steelers take him back, people like to joke that he might like give secrets away, yada yada. But we don't know. They won't explain, and all it does is leaves us to speculate. And now, of course, it's going to be the storyline if these other 2 guys don't go.
Yeah, and you kind of just summed up my question. It just seems there's a lot of injuries at the wide receiver position over there. I kind of like been following your Twitter to see that. Before we wrap this up too, just want to talk about Rashard Bateman. It seems like he's been coming along this season. Just tell me a little bit more about him. And is there any injuries, updates as far as, that came across your desk recently that we can expect that might be surprising come Saturday?
Yeah, so Rashad, he has kind of had a hard time since the start. He's had a lot of injuries. I know he focused on his health coming into the season, but he also told me none of his injuries were preventable. And so he was very focused. I mean, he took a lot of like off days here and there if he felt like even the slightest thing, and it was paying off. And a lot of it came down to chemistry. He just didn't have reps with Lamar. And when I talked to like his quarterbacks coach and his college quarterback, they had a great point of like, it's hard to prepare for Lamar Jackson because there is no other Lamar Jackson, right? Like no one can simulate what he does. So if he's only like getting some of these reps in the off season with other people, it's not with Lamar. So come back, everyone was like, oh, they have problems together, maybe this or that. And he's proven them all wrong. He's looked really nice. We haven't seen what it looks like for him to have like a traditional like wide receiver 1 load, because he's not really the guy they look to for short stuff, even though he can do it. And the Ravens really like, they have so many receiving tight ends too that in the way they use some of their running backs, it's like they have a million receivers too. So it's like really hard for there to be like a traditional wide receiver 1, like a Jamar Chase. And so I know my beat partner is like scientific experiment. I would love to see like how he would handle that. So he's coming along nice. He obviously had a really wonderful game last game, and he practiced first day practice yesterday. He was there, and then like wasn't in the locker room, heard he was injured, ends up on the injury report. And then today he walked in, strapped on a walking boot, and walked out. So I mean, walking boots are hard to evaluate like what that means. Sometimes it can just be like precautionary. But he didn't practice today, and that's like Harbaugh wouldn't really give an update. So I'm a little worried about his availability, but maybe he'll surprise us and like come back and it's all just precautionary. But yeah, and then Nelson Aguilar, as we talked about, concussion protocol, but apparently there's still time for him to clear it before the game, which would be surprisingly huge. I never thought that I'd be saying Nelson Aguilar's availability would be huge, but in this situation, and then we were worried Justice Hill was off yesterday, but it was a personal reason, so he's back, so that's good. And then Odafe Owe was limited, but he was back today too. So
another Penn Stater.
Yes, sir. We got a few of them. He was a freshman coming in when I was senior, so I actually never interviewed him while I was at Penn State. But I heard his name a lot because Franklin loved to talk about him back when he was Jason Owe. But yeah, so every now and then Jason will slip out, and I'm like, oh, sorry. But yeah, so they're surprisingly healthy, especially compared to last season. They were better last season when they were less healthy, which is weird. But yeah, they've maintained their health. So I think the Aguilar-Rashad Bateman combo is going to be the biggest thing for you guys.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we get you out of here, we appreciate the insight. We always like to do this with our guests, especially at AFC North rivalry. Give us your prediction, and just remember you're on a Steelers podcast.
Are you allowed to give a prediction?
Yeah, we do predictions. I haven't actually come up with like my numbers or everything yet. I do think that I thought they were going to split it this season. So Steelers won last one, so I'd say Ravens this one. That obviously will change depending on health, especially like TJ Watt. I don't know if you guys think he's going to go. I hope he I
think Pickens out, which is huge.
Okay.
And
so I do think, I don't know. I hate picking against Lamar. Like, I've just seen him make me look stupid when I pick against him so many times. I know PQ is going to be raring to go, but I think Lamar is more of a game changer than Patrick is. So I'll go with Lamar on this one. I don't know, score-wise, relatively low, I would guess, especially with all these wide receivers out. But maybe another comes down to a field goal type of game.
We'll see. We'll see which kicker decides to show up that game. So you never know. That's some crazier things happen. Hey, tell everyone we really appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have to do this again in the future. But where can everyone find your work, and what do you have coming up next?
Yeah, everyone can find it on the Baltimore Banner. And or any of my socials. They're all Giana with one N _ Jade, like the stone. And I have some fun little more community related pieces coming up. I have something on artist who's just selected to show in Miami Art Week, who's inspired by Ray Lewis, who none of your Steelers fans will want to read about. And then I've got a nice little like inside look on why this new safety pairing, which I guess started right before they played you guys last, why that's found so much success, whereas the other ones haven't. So that'll be coming out sometime soon.
Well, hey, keep up the good work. Awesome. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you. You guys as well.
Happy holidays. Take care. Well, I guess it's our time now, right?
Yeah, and maybe I'll go first so we can end on a good note. But I'm going with Giana here. I think the Ravens are just due to beat the Steelers. I read that Lamar Jackson has actually never started a game against the Steelers at home. So I think that's a pretty big deal as well. Steelers are 7-point underdogs. That's a big spread. That's like the fourth biggest favorite of the entire weekend. And we talked about it on Tuesday. The health is significant. With George Pickens, this is an offense that put up, 30 points in 3 consecutive games. Without him, they just don't even look close to the same. And, I know we've only seen it for a couple weeks, but he's the top 10 receiver in the league for my money. And you lose that and you play a really good team on the road with TJ still banged up a little bit, even though I think he's going to play. Don't take it as gospel. I know I just said it. I made 2 predictions on X yesterday. 1, the Steelers lose this game. I'll go 24-20 Ravens. And 2, they still win the AFC North because they still control their own destiny even if they lose. So those are my 2 predictions.
Well, I just think that, coming off that, and it's going to be tough without George Pickens playing. I hope, TJ Watt should be good to go. I think that I kind of agree with her in the fact that it's going to be the defense. I think it might come down to the last possession. I'm going to go 2017 Steelers. And the reason I say that is I just feel like that this Steelers team is different. I think this is the game where the Steelers are going to curl up in a ball. And I'm not saying that. I know it's AFC North football, but they're kind of just going to be like, oh, this was a good run. That's what people are expecting. I think that this Steeler team is different with Russ under center, and I think that they're going to pull this one out. Now, I'm going to tell you this much. It's not going to be pretty. With all the wide receivers out, I just think it's going to be, just some AFC North battle, and the team that has the last, possession is going to win, and I think that's ultimately going to be the Steelers. So I'm saying 2017 Steelers.
Listen, it's not a crazy prediction. They've won 8 of 9. So,
I don't know what it is.
Be excited, a surprise. Wouldn't be surprised either way.
But yeah, we'll be back soon. This was a great episode. Really excited. Saturday's just great in general. College playoff. So get comfortable. Do what you need to do. Run the
Hail to Pitt at her.
Yeah.
I thought you might throw a Hail to Pitt out there. But I guess when they lose their last 5 games, it makes
at this point, I'm just staying. I'm just staying
away
from it. After that debacle, whatever you want to call it. But yeah,
comeback. I think her comeback would have been pretty easy on that one.
Yeah. So hey, as always, we appreciate hanging out. Happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating out there. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Man, this is when it all counts. Jay York Football, Mic'd Up Sports 1. See you guys soon. Go Steelers.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube. Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.